Hi guys. Oh, I'm crooked. Hi, it's Kim and I'm here for our live today. I'm a little sweaty. I've been running around. So I'm glad that you could join me for this Facebook and YouTube live, or Facebook and YouTube, I don't know. So I use a service called StreamYard. So I go live in two places because not everyone can see it everywhere. And so I want to make sure that everyone can see it when they want to see it. So I am here on StreamYard to Facebook and to YouTube. And so they managed to do something where they pull the comments and questions in from both areas. So I should be able to see your questions, but they might not, you might be like, where did that question come from? It came from the other place. So hopefully that makes some sense. I got a package in the mail from my friends at Keto Brick. I picked this one to go with my shirt, apparently. But I've got a package here from Keto Brick. You guys familiar with Keto Brick? There's a new flavor, chocolate peanut butter cup, that I haven't tried yet. So we've got a nice stack. Let me show you. I got a whole bunch of them. So lots and lots of flavors. So we've got coconut cream, cookies and crunch, toasted almond coconut, peanut butter, which was previously my favorite, but we'll see how chocolate peanut butter does for me. Chocolate malt, not a big malt fan, just not my thing. Mocha cream, and then the new one, chocolate peanut butter. So excited for these new flavors. Happy to have you here with me today. And so I wanted you guys to know that I love Keto Brick products. They don't pay me to say that. I just love the people. So anyway, I'm hoping that you guys will come with the questions. Yeah, Natalie says, love to melt those down into smaller pieces and keep them in the fridge. Yep, I use a little silicone mold. And so one of these bricks is 1,000 calories. I put it into 10 servings. So it's a 100 calorie serving. So it's great. Barbara says, can Keto Bricks be shipped in hot weather? So they're much less melty. I should probably open one of these for you, huh? Open the toasted. This is gonna, it's a little crinkly, the noise. Ooh, cocoa butter smell. So you can see, this is what a brick looks like. And you can see I'm rubbing my finger on it. It doesn't really, I mean, I feel a little moisturized because it's got a lot of cocoa butter in it, but it's pretty hard. Like I wouldn't take a bite out of this. It would be a little harsh. It's a little thick for me. So I always melt them down. If it was extremely hot and they were outside for a long period of time, they would, I think, melt. I think Robert says they will melt if you leave it on like your dashboard, but they're not like chocolate, right? Which will just melt instantaneously. So, they'll still do fine. But if you live in a place where your box is going to be like in direct sun for a long time, then you might want to question that. But the shipping process, it seems fine in the summer. All right, let's dive in with the questions. Best place or courses to become a keto or carnivore coach? That's a great question. I wish I had a good answer for you. Quite honestly, at the end of the day, I think it's about educating yourself really well if you want to go out into this world as a coach, and doing coaching courses that teach you things kind of from a general perspective. I think sometimes, honestly, getting too siloed into one thing, like for me, I'm currently taking a course with Nisha on just like general health topics. I'm taking another course with a guy named Sam Miller about metabolic processes. I take a ton of courses. I don't know if you guys know this, but like I'm always have to be learning, or I don't feel like I'm worth being a coach, right? Like I've always got to be taking in new information. And if I don't look back at a few years ago and say, well, that maybe, you kind of, sometimes you have to grow. You have to be like, I don't agree with myself anymore, right? We have to constantly challenge what we think. So I don't have a good answer, Kizzy. I'm sorry. I know there are some people out there, good people doing, I'm sure are good programs, but I have not really evaluated them enough to know. And there's a lot of people out there, unfortunately, doing not so good programs. So be cautious. All right. Kelly says, I tried the element samples you suggested. Don't open the single packs with your mouth. Yeah. Don't even inhale as you open an electrolyte package because it's a very sharp, stinging sensation to your nose. I'm glad that you liked them though. Yeah. Oh, you said, yeah, it went up your nose. Totally. Hey, okay, let's see. A lot of people giving the love to the chocolate peanut butter. So we're excited about that. Donna says, you're not going on the Dr. Brick cruise. That's not true. I am going. They just haven't put my picture up yet. I explained that we had to talk about it when I was visiting them. I'm definitely going. I just explained that I'm a little claustrophobic these days, and I need to make sure that I can get a room with a window. Anyway, but yeah, I'm definitely going. As you know, barring any horrendous events in the preceding months before the event. Yeah, so they just haven't updated the status yet. Shari says, have I worked or taken any classes from Dr. Westman? No, I've not taken a class with Dr. Westman. I am fond of Dr. Westman. I think he has great information. Him and Amy Berger, who strangely people sometimes confuse me for, but I don't think we look alike at all other than we both have dark hair and pale skin. But anyway, but I'm not offended in any way because Amy is delightful and I like her very much. But Amy and Dr. Westman have put out some fabulous information. Dr. Westman on his own, and then Amy on her own, and then both of them together have done a course recently, I believe, in a book. Think they're great. Think they're not they. I shouldn't. Amy has written a book on stalls and what to do about that. I think Dr. Westman gives great beginner information. He doesn't. I don't know in his courses if he has like real troubleshooting details. I don't know. See, clearly I've not taken a course with him, but I think he's got great information. Question from a newbie. Don't apologize, Renelle. I'm glad that you're here. I'm feeling my hair today. What do you? I like it when it gets wavy. Anyway, what are your thoughts about artificial sweeteners? Dr. Siwis says no problem. Dr. Annette Bosworth said no. Thoughts? I'm a Diet Coke addict. So I also was a Diet Coke addict when I started keto. So we are friends. And I didn't give up my Diet Cokes for several months after going keto. A little light there. And honestly, I think Nisha and I talked about this in an upcoming class we put together, but we're basically like, if you're starting keto and the thing you're struggling with is giving up soda, and your soda is diet, not sugar, right? A diet soda. Maybe don't worry about that right now. Maybe just take care of everything else and then deal with the Diet Coke. So my opinion is when you're first starting, Diet Coke isn't the worst thing you can be doing. And I wouldn't have changed the fact that I waited on the Diet Coke for a little while. Now, then I went through some periods of time when I took sweeteners completely out. I re-added sweeteners back in. And I do great with sweeteners in my plan. I actually you're new, so you probably don't know my whole life story. Welcome. I lost like 60 pounds on keto. Then I stalled for a very long time. And in that stall period, I tried taking out sweeteners, Carnivore, Ketovore, this, that, more protein, less fat, more fat, less, I like everything. And then eventually kind of found my groove. And when I found my groove, it included sweeteners. So I lost another 30 pounds this past year. And so this right here is a giant, you'll also get to know that I'm a sippy cup because this is my sippy cup. There is a can of Zevia in here, which probably takes up about that much. It's a big sippy cup. There's also ice, which takes up some of that. And then there's seltzer water because it's a little too sweet for me now. So that's the thing, is that I don't like things as sweet as I used to. And while I will have an occasional Diet Coke when I go out to a restaurant, I'm always sort of disappointed in the experience. I'm like, these are not as good as I remember. I remember them being very good. And then I mostly think, I kind of have a headache now. So anyway, so but give yourself time. Tackle all the keto stuff first. I think this probably goes with what Robert Siwas says a little bit closer. I know he's not a big fan of sweeteners, but I think he sees them as something that's in the beginning, not as big a deal if you need. I think he calls them, does he call them a crutch or a bridge walker or something? Anyway, so, and I would agree with that in terms of just give yourself a little grace. And then little by little start working on the details, if you know what I mean. But like maybe focus on getting your carbs down, like your carb count down while you continue to have some Diet Coke. And then maybe in a couple of months, you're going to be like, do I feel ready to address if I want to keep drinking Diet Coke? And that's what I would do. That's kind of what I did. Susan asked, what is this about a Dr. B cruise? So there is a cruise called the Low Carb Cruise. I think it's lowcarbcruiseinfo.com. It's run by a woman named Debbie, who's awesome. And Dr. B and Nisha are going to be the hosts for the cruise in 2022. Like, what year is it? 2022, which is in like 8 months, I think, in May. It's May. And I will be on it along with many other people. So it's going to be tons of fun. We're expecting a really big group. There's sort of two components. One is just that you're going on a cruise, right? You're on a cruise ship. It's not, the whole ship is not keto, low carb people, but we are a part of the ship. And then there's it's like a conference plus a cruise, plus sign. That's not like a vampire sign, plus sign, put together. So the days we're at sea, there'll be like speakers. And then the days we're on shore, they'll be beaching, because that's what I do. I go to the beach. Anyway, okay. Thank you, Holly. All right, let's see. So back to the sweetener issue. So there's a lot of different opinions about sweetener. And, some people will say, no, you shouldn't do any sweeteners. Sweeteners are going to totally derail you because a sweet taste or sweet things are going to cause an insulin response. And then that insulin response is going to elevate your insulin, and then your elevated insulin is going to cause you to continue to have insulin resistance and yada, 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 right? That's one camp. The other people are like, there's no evidence that these things actually have any significant impact on insulin. And in fact, some of them seem to lower insulin. And when we look at the studies, yada, yada, yada. So what do you do? Because there's no consensus opinion. There's no one thing that everyone agrees on about sweeteners for the most part. And so I would say there are some sweeteners that I say are a bad idea. Things like maltitol, bad idea. Because it not only raises your blood sugar, it causes gastric distress, right? Like there's all sorts of problems. So there are some that are an easy answer. But then there are others like erythritol, or monk fruit, or allulose, where you're like, the jury is kind of out. And what I usually say is look at how you respond to using sweeteners. So that would mean, say you include Zevia, which is sweetened with stevia, in your diet. When I say diet, I just mean what you eat. Do you notice you have a lot of cravings? Do you notice you're hungrier after you have one? Notice if you cut them out for a couple of weeks, are you eating less? Are you feeling better, right? So like, you just kind of have to feel into what works for you. Colleen says, how do we get a code for LMNT samples? I think I can put this in here. It's drink. LMNT.com/. And then I think I could, yeah. Okay, so that it'll go up on the screen in a minute. Show. I almost put myself in timeout. I didn't mean to do that. So that's my link. It's a link where essentially when enough people buy them, they send me some free elements. So that's nice. But it's a sample pack you can get. It's $5 shipping, but they don't charge you for the stuff. So that's pretty good. Okay. So, oh, hey, Dr. B, nice to have you on. What are you doing here? I should invite you on to say hey. Lowcarbcruiseinfo.com. Okay, I'm not gonna block user. I'm going to put that on the screen now. So that's the cruise. It is a week-long cruise, Kim. A week-long cruise, 7 days. A bridge. Thank you, Tracy. Okay. How do we get, okay, I got that one. Check. Jean, I'm so sorry. Just had a scary accident. You're okay. Oh, so happy that you're okay. How do you stay focused? Well, I would say, you had a scare, your emotions are all up in the air. I assume these two things are connected, right? That you're saying, how do you stay focused after something like that? I would say, stay focused and grateful on having a body, and that you want your body to feel as good as it possibly can. And so you want to do the best you can to support that body, and maybe look to nurture yourself in non-food ways. Have a nice hot bath, have a cup of tea. I mean, it's sort of food, but like not a calorically high way, right? Get a massage, watch your favorite movie. Do something non-food related to start to calm you. And you'll train these pathways where you start to associate stress relief with not food. Okay. Chelsea says, what is the best advice for someone starting that is a sugar carb addict? I would say eat lots of high-fat meat when you're hungry, and eat a lot of it for a good 10 days. I mean, wake up in the morning. Are you hungry? Eat high fat. So eat like eggs, bacon, eat a big meal, be really full. Have some coffee, put some cream in it. The next time you get hungry that day, have a lot of meat, high-fat meat, like ribeye or more bacon and eggs, or a bunless burger, right? Eat until you're full. Then next time you get hungry, do the same thing, right? So, but try to eat like 3 times a day, not 4 or 5, right? So eat enough that you're like, woo, I am full. And then over the course of, I say 10 days, some people it's 14, some people it's 5, like whatever, but it's around 10 days, somewhere in there. You'll notice you feel less crazy. So that's my recommendation. Jen asked, there's so much conflicting info out there about what does and doesn't break a fast. Anything from tea to toothpaste. How do I know what truly does break a fast? Okay, just like I talked about before with sweeteners, right? This is one of those situations where, cutting off the top of my head, this is one of those situations where there's a lot of information out there. There are a lot of opinions out there. There's not a lot of actual science out there. So this is one of those places where you have to find what works for you. So the reality is that most of the real minute detail they've done about fasting has been done on mice, not humans, because you can't vivisect a person legally anyway. That would be illegal. So generally speaking, you have to think about this. Why am I fill in the blank, right? Anytime you're like, what, where are the boundaries, right? It's like, why am I X? Why am I fasting? So if you understand the reasons why you're fasting, is it for autophagy? Is it for lowered insulin? Is it for increased brain function? Whatever those reasons you're looking for to fast, what would be likely to violate that thing you're trying to accomplish? If you're saying, well, I like to eat 2 enormous meals a day. So I don't want to eat 3, I want to eat 2. And so I save my food for those meals. Well, then just if it's not food, it doesn't break your fast because it doesn't violate the reasons you're fasting. Then maybe you're like, I like to increase autophagy. Well, you know what else increases autophagy? Exercise. But you get lightheaded when you exercise. I'm not saying everybody, I'm just saying if a person, some people do fasted exercise just fine. But if you're like, oh, I get a little lightheaded when I work out without exercising, try the electrolytes. Electrolytes doesn't work. But if I have half a cup of yogurt, it doesn't happen. Okay, well now you're like, exercise increases autophagy, but yogurt ends the fast. Does that reduce the autophagy? Right? So you have to kind of pull apart the details of what am I trying to get out of what am I doing? And that will tell you personally whether or not what will and won't break a fast. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. Trying to bring a little common sense to it, this whole thing. Diana says, I bought a 6-pack of Zevia ginger ale last year. I still have 2 left. Yeah, that's not an issue for you. All right. Let's see. Craig said something and then I lost it. All I know is that sweeteners affect me negatively. And that is all you need to know, Craig. If they don't work for you, don't make them, don't drink them. But you know, I drink an occasional scotch. Okay. Ada says, how long in the microwave to melt a keto brick? Like it's like 30 seconds. So I take this out like this. See, this is what it looks like. Take this out and I pop it in a little measuring cup. It helps. It has a little spout. Pop that in the microwave for 30 seconds. Check it. If it's not done, put it in for another 15 seconds. Stir it up. And then I pour it into my molds. And then I pop that into the fridge. You don't have to put it in the fridge, but it kind of speeds up the cooling. And then I put it in, pop them out of the mold, put them in a little baggie, throw them in the produce drawer so that I know where they are. Melinda says she bought an Redmond's electrolytes. Yummy. I am obsessed with their pina colada. So good. Okay. Caboodle asked, any suggestions on how to lower stress, elevated blood sugars? Was dealing with insane stress. Worked for the last month from 90 to 100 blood glucose normal. Okay, so normally you're 90 to 100. You are 150 to 180 while staying ketovore, and it's not coming back down. I would say meditation, long walks, but not like, I mean, get your blood pumping walks are great, but also like if we're just trying to look for de-stressing events, like leisurely strolls, but long ones, like in the type, not if it's hot outside, but like in the evening when it's cooling and nice, and listen to music you like, and maybe do some painting or color book, like a kid's coloring book almost, or they make one for adults. Things that you just can't really think about anything while you're doing them, or try not to, right? Meditation. Even if you suck at meditation, it's the trying that matters. It's the sitting that matters. They say it's not how long, like if you're constantly trying to think, as long as you don't focus on those thoughts, it's fine. There are some guided meditations that are great. So just work on those kinds of things. And over time, hopefully those will improve. Okay, now I'm scratching my nose like crazy. It's allergy season here in the Bay Area and everything itches. You ever have that feeling like you have a hair on your nose and I don't think there's a hair on my nose. I just feel like, anyway, this is the joy of Alive with Kim. Okay. Lori says, what is your feeling about protein sparing modified fast to break stall? So a protein sparing modified fast has become kind of popular recently, right? But interestingly, they started in like the 70s. The first attempt was poor. There was a doctor who, started them, and it was called like the Last Chance Diet. And it was this diet they put very overweight people on. So it was, I'm going to tell you the evolution. And apparently it killed people. Not because there's anything wrong with the macros, but because he sold a product that went with it. And it was a protein shake, but it was collagen protein, and collagen protein is an incomplete protein. And so all these people were consuming was collagen protein, and some of their hearts stopped working, because the heart is a muscle. Anywho, so don't do that one, but that's good. That one's off the market. Then in the 90s, I think Lyle McDonald, who's a bodybuilder, kind of took the concept on and did something called, I think it was a protein sparing modified fast is what I think he called it. And basically it's close to what we know today for most people, which is like very, very lean meats, as little fat as humanly possible, and maybe some green leafy vegetables. And he was more liberal. He's not purely keto carnivore kind of thing. So that was more like you could have lots of leafy green veg, but not any fat, and only like very incidental fat that came in meat. And then more recently, the Emmerichs have kind of repopularized protein sparing modified fasts a bit. And theirs is definitely similar to that, however, not so liberal on the leafy greens, though I think you can have some, but they have a carb limit. So that's the history of protein sparing modified fasts. Thank you for coming to my talk. And my feeling on them is they are a tool. They are a good tool for some people. I have one client who has lost 30 pounds using a 2-day-a-week protein sparing modified fast approach. Now, I don't put all clients on that approach. I don't think they work for everybody. Just like if you have a leak, you don't need a hammer, right? You have to use them in the appropriate circumstances. And so I guess the question would be, why are you stalled? Which can often be that you're eating way too much. And if you're stalled because you're eating way too much, certainly a protein sparing modified fast would be potentially helpful because it reduces the amount you eat on average over the course of the week. But then a protein sparing modified fast really shouldn't be used, in my opinion, any more than 2 days a week. So what are you doing the other 5? Is it sound? Are you doing the right things? So a protein sparing modified fast approach is part of a larger approach. So the whole approach matters. So hopefully that made sense. So I'm not against them, but they're not, in my opinion, I see some people getting into trouble, some of whom have been working with me, not because I told them to do this, but because they did what I told them not to do. And they're like, well, I saw people saying they got some really good results. So I went on a 3-week protein sparing modified fast and things went really badly. So I would say you have to use them appropriately, is my opinion, and they're not appropriate for everyone. I think if you're somebody that still struggles with threads of binge eating disorder, bulimia, anorexia, that kind of thing, any tendrils of that still lingering in your brain, even if you're like, well, I'm pretty under control these days. I have a lot of clients who are like, oh, keto totally cured my binge eating disorder. And then they try to do a protein sparing modified fast and they're like, and it's back, right? And so it's something you really have to be in the right frame of mind for, and you have to be thinking about it in the context of a well-formulated life. That's my opinion. Also, I wouldn't do it in a stressful time. It is stressful in and of itself. Bonnie says, I use stevia. I've come to this thought. You do you and I do me. Absolutely. We all do our own thing. Hold on. Scrolling, missing. Like Nisha said, yes, you are a grown person. Indeed. Do your thing. You do you. That's what I say. Amy says, what type duration of exercise helps with autophagy? Weight training, resistance training, especially, as far as I know, will help. And I believe any type of movement, though, will. And also black coffee, apparently. But I believe that's from a rodent study, but supposedly helps. Bob, if I lost over 100 pounds in a year, been stalled about 6 months, never cheat. I intermittent fast 18 to 21 hours, 5 to 6 days a week. What do I think about keto flexing? Bob, great question. Thank you for asking. I understand keto flexing means, I just had to it. I wish the flex was more impressive over here, people. Is basically carb. It's another way people are now terming essentially carb cycling. I don't think carb cycling is necessary or good for most people who are insulin resistant or continue to have issues losing body fat, quite honestly. I think that for the most part, I would take a real deep dive into what you're eating, how much you're eating. If it's time for maybe a diet break or a maintenance period where you take your attention off of losing body fat intentionally, and give yourself a break and then reevaluate, re-engage. This is part of what I teach in my course, Keto Unstuck, which is that you have to periodize. So a lot of us didn't learn this, that I think it's important when you'll start keto, you'll lose a bunch of weight and you'll stall out. This is what I hear from so many people. By the way, congrats on the 100 pounds. That's amazing. And then they get super frustrated and they start doubling. I did it, right? Doubling down on all sorts of things that don't work, pushing the needle. And then, when I came up for air, I realized is I had to actually take a break, not from keto. I stayed low carb, but I had to focus on other things and stop stressing so much about losing body fat and start focusing on my sleep and my health and eating more. I ate more for like a year and I didn't gain any significant weight. I gained a few pounds. But that was expected. And then I came at it fresh and then was able to lose another 30 pounds on top of the pounds I'd already lost. So that was important. So I think for a lot of people that are stalled for a long time, first I would say you can evaluate what you've been doing and see, are you still, like, get real honest. Are you still eating quite a bit or are you not? And given what you've told me, I would say probably not, unless that 1 or 2 meals a day that you're eating is a giant blowout. And then you have to kind of look at like, oh, okay, what can I do from here to fix it? So you have to, so I always suggest seasons, right? So there are times when we're trying to lose body fat and there are times when we're not. And we just kind of cycle through that. And ultimately, I think that's what makes for a long-term successful approach. Putney hold on, I'm thirsty. Putney asks, is my boyfriend keto? No, he is not. He is not. He is a carb eating person. He's a healthy eater and he's very, very active and he has amazingly fine, normal, good blood sugars. He can go for a fasted hike. So he definitely doesn't have blood sugar dysregulation or hangry issues or any of that. So really, I firmly believe, like, if he wanted to change and needed a change, he would initiate one, but he seems perfectly happy and fine. So there are cookies in my cabinet. There is ice cream in my freezer. I just don't eat it. Janet asked, what is a keto brick? So Keto Brick is a brick that was invented by my friend Robert Sykes, a food item, I should say, and he calls it a brick. And it's 1,000 calories. It's this is Ken Kim Reed, a food label. There are some slight variation between bricks depending on the flavor, but it's 92 grams of fat and 32 grams of protein. And the carbs are usually somewhere between 10 and 13, just from things like cocoa powder and flax seeds and stuff that are in there to give it texture. So it's very, very high fat. I would even call it maybe like a fat bomb. But he created it because Robert is a bodybuilder, a keto bodybuilder, and he needs more calories to get through his day. And this is a great way to have, it's sort of like a meal bar. But you might notice it's fairly low in protein. Now, Robert follows a very high fat keto diet for his purposes. I follow more of a high protein approach these days. However, he doesn't just eat keto bricks. He'll have a meal that's like one, for him, it would be like a whole keto brick, but for another person, it might be part of a keto brick and then meat added to it. I mean, not added to the brick, but added to the meal. Susan says, protein sparing modified fast. I'm just in it for the bread. Yeah. There you go. Looking. Sorry. Anna, I have been stalled for nearly 3 months, but had lost over 20 kilograms the 3 months before that. That's amazing. I would say also it's possible that your body just might need a little break. So I honestly think if you're not gaining right now and you lost 20 kilograms, which for the Americans is around 50 pounds, you've done amazing things there. And yeah, so maybe it might at some point in the future, soonish, but no rush, be time to kind of look and evaluate if changes need to be made to your macros, which probably they will. But it also might be time to intentionally not try to lose weight for a little while. Sometimes just putting a name on it is important. Like instead of getting on the scale every morning and thinking I'm trying to lose weight and you didn't lose weight, but did I actually try to lose weight? Was I trying? Was I really trying? Right? I think we can wear ourselves out. We can get fatigued from expecting a result that we're not actually making happen. So sometimes I think it's good to take an intentional break. Sherry says keto 3.5 years, keto carnivore 5 months. Just found out I have a nodule on my thyroid. Ugh. Any advice on how to shrink that and heal them? No, I don't know, honestly. I would say for some people, if it might be autoimmune in nature. And so I would say definitely look at if there are any, you said you're ketovore carnivore 5 months. So you're already moving in that direction. potentially, is maybe look at removing dairy. But for the most part, I'm not sure that anything will move that needle just yet. Tracy mentioned she has nodules that come and go. No problem, Val. Tracy, I threw you up on the screen. Does keto long-term eventually fix the dawn phenomenon? Good question. So what is the dawn phenomenon? Let's talk about that first, which is dawn phenomenon is something we see where, generally speaking, it's that rising cortisol in the morning. So you guys know, right, that when you're sleeping, your cortisol is lower at night. Your cortisol peaks right before you get up, before you wake up. And that cortisol gives you sort of a burst of energy right into that day. So we're supposed to have peaking cortisol in the morning. And then for some people that sort of has this issue that they get higher blood glucose as your cortisol goes up, the higher blood glucose. And now you've got this momentary high glucose in the morning. So you might have been over. Oh, and somebody earlier asked, why does blood sugar go down at night? So let me see if I can throw that in here. So when you're keto, a lot of us, if we wear a CGM, we see this. Otherwise, we don't see this, right? Because we're sleeping. Our blood sugar may drop fairly low in the night. It's not really a problem for you. If it wakes you up, it might be, but it doesn't really wake most of us up. We have no idea until we see that CGM. The other thing I would like to mention is if you roll onto your CGM, it will sometimes read abnormally low, which happens to me. I'm like, it'll read like very, very low. And I realize I had slept on that arm. So that's a false low, but it does go lower at night. And then in the morning, as your cortisol goes up, your blood sugar might go up. Now, everyone's cortisol goes up in the morning, keto or not. What is happening in the case where people see that dawn phenomenon, it's like they have an hour or so when their blood sugar seems strangely high, like it peaks in the morning, and it might be the highest they see all day. And for a lot of people, that does even out over time. But I will honestly say if that hey, I'm not a doctor and this is not medical advice. Let me just say that first. But what I see is that for most people, as long as that blood sugar spike in the morning, the dawn phenomenon part is under like 110, 120. I don't really worry. If it was me, I really wouldn't worry about it. I'd just be like, let's just give this time and keep going. I see people like stressing out about that, and I don't think that's good for you. Okay. Diane said, so you said before to eat until you get full. You're not counting calories. Now you said if you're eating too much. I said, okay, got it, Diane. Okay, let me explain. That thing I said to do is when you first start keto. So your first 10, 20, maybe 30 days. I don't think it's important to count calories. I think just give your body a chance to get off of the carbs. Eat as much as you need to not eat the carby things. It's hard to transition. Give yourself that break. Also, get plenty of electrolytes. I didn't mention that, but if you go to electrolytes.kimhowerton.com, you can get my free ebook on electrolytes. But basically that says you need electrolytes. So make sure you do that when you start. So that's beginner keto. If you've been keto for months and months and you're not seeing the results that you want to see anymore, I do think you need to start tracking. I think it's important to track and know what's happening. Now, do you have to track all the time forever and ever? Amen? No, but you need to know what's going on. So track and see, are you getting enough protein? Are you getting enough food? Are you getting too much food, right? You have to look at all those variables. But thanks, Diane, for that clarifying question. I don't think it's necessary to track your first month, but I do think it's eventually necessary to track unless you're like, everything's going swimmingly and I'm very happy about everything that's happening. Well, then if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I'm so glad your blood sugar is down, Donald. Diana asked, should we count total carbs or net? I feel very strongly that we should count total carbs, especially when you're new. I think once you become insulin sensitive and you're healthier and your weight is better and everything is going well, then you can do net. It's the opposite of what a lot of people say. A lot of people say, well, do net at the beginning because it's more lenient because you can have a lot more vegetables. And it's not it did not work for me. I tried net at the beginning. It was a total disaster. I think people do better stricter to start. Now, at this point, 5 years in, having lost 90 something pounds, I can have a lot more vegetables, but I still count total. I just can have a lot more. So there you go. Somebody asked earlier about the Aunt Millie's bread, and now somebody's asking about the carbonate. I've actually tried both the Aunt Millie's bread and the carbonate bread, and they're actually really delicious, but they're very high in total carbs. And the carbonate has a gluten-free one, but Aunt Millie's has wheat, and the regular carbonate has wheat. So they're certainly not what I'd call clean keto, but I will say, because I tried them because I was doing a keto bread experiment. And I can say for my blood sugar, now we're all different, and what affects my blood sugar might not be what affects your blood sugar, but the carbonate and the Aunt Millie's, my blood sugar was stable on, even though the carbs seem really high, but they're the kind of carbs that don't always impact blood sugar, especially if you're healthy. Whereas like the Ora wheat keto bread, through the roof with the blood sugar. So there's some high variability on those breads. So that's my answer. I certainly wouldn't give them to a new to keto person. I think that would throw them off considerably. But again, we're all adults. You do you. When you include it, do you do better or worse? That's a good question to ask yourself. Julie asks, hey, Kim, should you take selenium when taking iodine? So Julie's question relates to thyroid. So for your thyroid hormone to function properly, you need selenium, L-tyrosine, and nobody ever talks about L-tyrosine. I think it's L-tyrosine. I'm like, is that the right word? And iodine. So you don't have to take them at the same time, but you need to make sure your daily diet includes plenty of all of those things. The good news is if you eat a lot of meat, your diet includes plenty of all those things. Except for the iodine, if you eat seafood and meat, your diet will include all those things. If you don't get any seafood and you don't eat any seaweed, then you might need a little bit of iodine. You don't need to take the selenium at the same time. It's just more on a daily basis. Now, most people, if you eat plenty of meat, you probably don't need to take any selenium either, but you can if you want a hyperdose of selenium, take 2 or 3 Brazil nuts. Don't eat more than that if you're eating them every day, because you'll get eventually selenium toxicity because they are so high in selenium. You don't really have to worry about overdosing on selenium with like meat or something like that because it just has a little bit. But Brazil nuts have so much selenium, and selenium in massive quantities is toxic. So you got to be careful with that. Nancy says, I use coconut oil for my coffee and it's shrunk several thyroid nodules. So that's great. Amber suggested that she's heard Lugol's helps with some nodules. Like, I don't know, but there you go. I keep touching the button. Sorry, guys. I don't mean to be outing your questions. I don't know what happened there. Okay. Sorry about that. No, that was me. Jan says, I did keto on and off for 3 years. I felt so much better while eating keto. My cholesterol was out of this world. So I think you mean out of control, right? So she changed medications, told me I needed to stop keto. My cholesterol dropped in 1 month. Is it wrong for me to want to restart keto and not tell my doctor? I am not a priest. I cannot give you absolution. I'm not even a Catholic. Can you tell? But I would say it is not wrong for you to do what you feel is overall best for your health. Heather, thoughts on carnivore baking? I'm a stay-at-home mom now, but I was a baker before. Perfect job for a sugar addict. Totally. Now I have a new diet in life, but what about working again, finding a job or bake carnivore treats? I think carnivore treats are a rough one, potentially, because most carnivores don't do sweeteners. And so that would be potentially an issue. I'm a big fan of using pork rinds as flour. I do my pumpkin bread. If you guys want to look for it, it's on my blog, kimhowerton.com, recipes, look for the magic pumpkin bread. It's like mostly pork rinds in there. Yeah. But Heather, certainly becoming maybe somebody who makes recipes and does meal related things. It's a career for sure. Amber, my total cholesterol is 349, keto for 4 years. My HDL is 77. Triglycerides are very low, so I don't worry. My doc wants to be on my statin. I told him, no way, Jose. This is a decision we all have to come to. I do think it's good to do your research and be an informed patient. Annie Coney says, Kim, is it safe to use Lugol's iodine when we take more metformin and Synthord? Would like to take 2 drops. What do you think? I have not heard that there's a problem, but as I said, I'm not a doctor. I take a thyroid medicine. I take Armour Thyroid, and I also take Lugol's. So I have not heard there's any problem there. What's my thought on keto ice cream? I am a fan of keto ice cream. It's so funny. Before keto, I didn't really eat ice cream. I mean, I certainly would eat ice cream, but it was not my thing. And now I really do like keto ice cream. But I didn't really get into keto ice creams until this year when I found myself to be much more carb tolerant than I used to be. So I would say it depends how you react to it. And I think there are better and worse ones. I honestly think, I talked to a good friend of mine who does food testing. And like what, and apparently, so I have a podcast on this actually, which is about soluble corn fiber and why some products with soluble corn fiber raise blood sugar and some don't. It turns out there are many grades of soluble corn fiber. So when you read soluble corn fiber on the label, you have to be very cautious. And so you have to know how it's going to affect your body. So I would say ease into it cautiously, see how you do. Are you gaining weight? Are you experiencing higher blood sugars? And if not, then maybe it's something you can include in your life. I really like Enlightened. I think it's one of the higher quality ones in terms of they definitely use a better form of soluble corn fiber than a lot of other companies seem to. I would not touch Halo Top. Stuff's disgusting. All right. Green Eye Dove. Is it possible that full keto? Oh, by the way, Amy, always measure it out. I still use a scale to measure out my ice cream so I don't eat the wrong amount because I cannot eyeball ice cream. And I never eat it directly from the carton. Those are my rules. So have your rules or else it'll all go badly. Green Eye Dove says, it's possible that full keto will cause your sinuses to start clearing itself out. May sound silly, but I'm curious because I'm experiencing some major issues. So here's the deal. Some people especially carry a lot of inflammation in our sinuses. Crazy, but true. When you go keto and you start to experience lower inflammation, your sinuses can open up because that inflammation shrinks, right? Which makes the sinus cavity wider, which can cause more drainage. So I don't know if that's what you're experiencing, but it's possible. Salome says, hi, Kim, I would love to know if drinking Sprite and Bang energy drinks could keep me from losing more weight. Salome, the only real way to tell is to cut them out for 30 days and see if the weight comes off or not. I'm not that all of it would come off, but if you're wondering how something is affecting you, the answer is always maybe. So I always suggest doing a 30-day experiment without them and then seeing if something changes. Gemma says, where do you recommend to get Brazil nuts? I can get them at really any store, any grocery store, that is. I can't get them at the like Nordstrom, but Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, probably at Safeway, like regular grocery stores. I've never had a problem finding them. Which is more accurate, asked Sylvia, a CGM or a blood test strips? They have apparently supposedly the same sort of tolerance, a 20% variability. So neither, generally speaking. I think the finger prick might be slightly more accurate than a CGM, but you always want to cross-reference. So I believe, in fact, yes. Here's the thing. It's like, how accurate are they where? So a CGM is really more meant for large swings. So when we start getting down into the minutia, I do think the finger prick test strips are a little more accurate, but it's not super important really for your general health to be pinpoint accurate on those things as much as seeing the trends and what's going on there. Val mentioned that she's seen people using glycine as a sweetener. Yes, glycine is an amino acid that is naturally very sweet. And I use often as a sweetener something called stevia glyceride, which is a combination of glycerin. Actually, no, that's glycerin. Never mind. But I think, isn't glycerin extracted from glycine? I think it is. This is where I'm like, I'm not a chemist. Tracy says, how can I find your chocolate chip recipe that uses gelatin? That is Keto Connect's chocolate chip recipe. So I would look on their website. I think it's there. I think but a lot of people have gelatin chocolate chip. Yeah, that's the one I think you'd probably be thinking of. Isn't soluble corn fiber also known as maltodextrin? Yes, but it's not the same as regular maltodextrin. There are several different types of maltodextrin. It's confusing. This is why I suggest counting total carbs and avoiding all this mishigas to begin with. Andrea said, did I ever take Synthord? No, I didn't. I've always taken a natural desiccated thyroid because I looked into it and I realized that Synthord is, I'm not against synthetics. I'm probably wearing, I think it's cotton, but I'm not against synthetics. I think my pants are synthetic. Anyway, but I do think that in terms of medications, it's important to get the best form. And I don't think synthetic thyroid hormone is as good as natural thyroid hormone. So I made sure that I got that. And I was working with a doctor who was down with it. Brandy said, I've read that people talking about being concerned that their doctor will label them as non-compliant if they refuse drugs like statins. Why would this be a concern? The answer is, Brandy, that some doctors are bleeps. No, some doctors don't want to be responsible for you saying you don't want to do what they say, and so they'll fire you. Or at least if they say you're non-compliant, if you later get into a problem, like you have a heart attack, they can point back and say, I told them. Heather says, thanks for the response. I'm worried that I'll be triggered back into sweets world. Yeah, so don't do that. So you're a really good baker. That's awesome. Give yourself some time. Give yourself some time. But then maybe you become a savory recipe creator instead of a sweets recipe creator. I know baking and cooking are different, but a love for food, it can be a love for food. Diana said the keto ice cream that one is, I think, called Keto Bar. The salted caramel is very tasty, and I do occasionally have one of those. Leanne, I've recently seen the doctor and my thyroid isn't working properly again. My PCOS and my fibro is all in flare up. I know why this happened. I fell off the keto wagon. Don't do that. You'll get back on the horse. To Fix mentioned that Carrie Brown has an ice cream book. Indeed, she does. Why does it seem like we're having to wrap up in a second. Why does it seem like my eye area swells if I take more than a half to a teaspoon of red mint salt a day? If you notice that's exactly the thing that's doing it, maybe you're a little salt sensitive. Not everyone can handle high quantities of salt, especially in larger quantities. Debbie says, will I be on the low carb cruise? Yes, I will. Sorry, guys, I'm going to have to just buzz through some questions here because we are running out of time. Help me how to get back on track eating fruit salad, corn on the cob, and a fried plantain. I would say move on. Eat a big steak, some eggs, fatty meat for a day or two, and just get over it. All right. Val says, I have a friend who is a severe type 2, has a CGM. His wife says they always double check with a finger prick. Yep, absolutely. You always need to double check your CGM. It can be a little wonky sometimes, but it's good for trends. It's good to see trends on. So I hope everyone has a fabulous week. This is all the time we have for this week, but I'll be back next week with more of the same. So thank you for joining me. Just so you guys know, I'm enrolling this week for my program called Keto Unstuck. It's a 12-week program where we go over why people get stalled on keto and how to fix it. And we work together to get you to the other side where things work well again. So if you're interested in that, please let me know. I will put a link up in the program notes here so that you can find out more about it if you want. It is a paid program. It's not a requirement. Obviously, I do these things for free every week, but if you're looking for some TLC on your weight loss efforts, then I am here for you. So talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye.